In section 12.4 of Math 120, we start to talk about the normal distribution and the empirical rule. The normal distribution is a bell-shaped curve that is symmetric about a vertical line through its center. In the normal distribution, the mean, median, and mode are all equal. When we're referring to the normal distribution, we typically only talk about the mean. The normal distribution provides a wonderful model for all kinds of phenomena because many sets of data items closely resemble this population distribution. Now, our normal curve has this basic shape. All three of these graphs show a normal curve. The height of the normal curve depends on the mean of the distribution. So this green curve has the highest mean because the peak of that curve is the highest. This red curve at the bottom has the lowest mean because its peak is the lowest. The other thing that controls the shape of our normal distribution, or our normal curve, is the standard deviation, and that controls the width. So because this green curve is the narrowest, it has the lowest standard deviation. Because the red curve is the widest, it has the highest standard deviation. In this example, we're going to assume that this distribution is approximately normal. What that means is we can sketch out a graph using that bell curve or that normal curve to help us answer the question. It says test scores with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 20. Find the score that is, in part A, 2 standard deviations above the mean, and in part B, 3 standard deviations below the mean. The easiest way to do this is to just build the whole normal curve. So I'll kind of draw my number line, because our normal curve is typically on top of a number line, and draw that normal curve. Now, right in the middle of this normal curve is the mean, and they told us that the mean was 100. Typically, when we draw a normal curve, we draw 3 standard deviations above the mean and 3 standard deviations below the mean. We'll talk about why when we discuss the empirical rule. They told us that the standard deviation is 20. If I start at the mean 100 and want standard deviations above the mean, I am going to add 20 to the mean for each step. So this first one is 100 plus 20, or 120. And that's 1 standard deviation above the mean. For 2 standard deviations above the mean, I add 20 again, so I'll have 140. And I'm getting the 20 from the standard deviation. For 3 standard deviations above the mean, I add 21 more time to get to 160. If I want standard deviations below the mean, I still use that 20, but this time I subtract it. 100 minus 20 gives me 80, so I have -1 standard deviation. If I subtract 20 again to get my 2 standard deviations below the mean, I'll get 60. And if I subtract 1 more time for my 3 standard deviations below the mean, I'll end up with 40. So if we're trying to answer part A, 2 standard deviations above the mean is right here. That score would be 140. For part B, 3 standard deviations below the mean, that's here. The score that correlates to that would be 40.